Hi folks, and welcome back to Fishing with Den. So today I'm going to show you how to fit a side puller bung into your pole. I've just fitted this one, and it's the very first one I've ever fitted, so I thought I'd better do it before I showed you how to do it, just to see what the pitfalls are. Just so you know, up until now I've been using the older style of bung, which just fits in the bottom. And it served me very well, but I wasn't all that keen on this bit sticking out. It also adds some weight to the tip of the pole, which probably isn't a great deal, but you know, if you can save some weight, let's save some weight. And so I've decided, as I say, to fit one of these. Now the ones I'm actually going to use are these ones, which are the MAP ones. Partly because the guy in the tackle shop that I bought them from told me that these probably had the largest bore for elastic of them all. Now he may be right or wrong, but either way I've taken his advice and I've bought these. Turns out they are quite easy to fit, and you do get some instructions inside the packet, if I can get this open. And in actual fact, having read them, it does turn out that they tell you what you need to know. So, quite pleased about that part anyway. I'm going to be also showing you how to elasticate the pole using the side puller. I've done the video where I showed you how to elasticate one with the end puller, but just so that you are aware, I'm going to show you how to do it with this, because there are certain complications to this. I'm going to use 14 to 16 elastic. It's quite a big chunky one, but I'm going to be using it on some fairly chunky sized fish. And once I've got all this elasticated, next week I'm going to take it down to my local pond and I'm going to give it a go. So the first thing you have to do, if I take the one I haven't done yet, just lose the old bung, you can probably see on my pole there's this raised section here. Let's see if we can get right up. Raised section here. All that means is that's the thicker part, and that's the bit that's been designed to take one of these puller bushes. I'm going to have to drill a 7mm hole in that, and I'm going to do it by hand, just using a battery operated screwdriver. I'm going to start off with a small drill. I'll probably start off with the 1.5mm drill bit, just to get the hole going. But also, so I don't be slipping off, I'll take some of this electrical tape, just wrap it around the central part of that thicker area, the reinforced area. I'm going to go around 2 or 3 times, give myself a little bit of depth of tape, and cut that off. And now it's just a question of drilling that. Now I haven't got this on the fast speed, this is on the lower speed, and I'm just going to very gently let this go into the wall here. Now, the thing to bear in mind is that these pole sections, the material they're made from is actually quite brittle, and obviously I don't want to be splitting it, so I'm just going to allow the drill just to go down under its own steam. Make sure you're in the centre and start drilling. Start slowly at first. Don't put any downward pressure on it, just allow the weight of the drill to do it. As I say, I'm on the slower speed. You've got plenty of time for this, you don't need to rush. And we're through. Now I'm going to just go up a little bit, and I'm going to take it to 2.5mm. You've probably already gathered that you need to do this in stages. And again, very gentle. Make sure you're in the hole. Right, at this point, you probably want to get something like this. You probably should have used it from the start, but I forgot. This is just a piece of balsa dowel, but I've seen pieces of hose used instead. And what this is for, if I just measure that, you can see I did the one before. I put this in. When you go down through the excuse me a second, when you go down through the wall and you're in danger of sort of going a bit too quickly and you're going to go through and potentially hit the other wall here. So just shove something inside there to stop yourself doing that. It's not too bad on the smaller drill bits, but the bigger drill bits can drag your drill through and you may end up drilling through the other side wall, as I've just said, which would not be good. This is a 4mm bit. This was a very, very sharp bit. You see what I mean though? It dragged it down through. There we go. And then I'm going to take it up to a 6mm bit now. Now remember, the hole's going to be 7mm. So 6mm, very gentle this time. No real pressure on the drill at all. Just allow it to go in, very gentle. There we go. Again, you could see how that was going to get pulled down. And then finally, I'm going to go to the 7mm bit. And again, be very gentle on this one. And already that's through, look. Okay, so there we go. That's it all drilled. So now with the hole drilled, we can take off the tape. And we've got the hole all done. Now you may or may not be able to see, but inside there are some fibres which are sort of loose. And that's caused by the drilling process. So what I've done, I've got myself a drill bit. This one happens to be 4.5mm because I happened to pick it up. I've got some 600 grit emery cloth and just taken a very small piece, and I'm going to wind it around that drill bit. And then I'm going to gently, very gently, just go around the inside of the hole here. Just trying to get rid of any fibres that are loose. And a quick check. Yeah, that seems to be pretty good actually. Now it's just a question of taking your MAP bush. You'll notice that at one end you've got the blue sleeve plus the white inner sleeve, and that's the part that goes outside, and obviously the blue end goes in here. And this end here is actually a fraction above 7mm. And so when I first did it, I found it was a little bit difficult to get in, and we'll soon find out if this is going to be the same. The end here needs obviously to point up towards the end of the pole. So if you try and push it in, it needs to be a reasonably strong fit, but don't force it. Now that actually feels a bit too tight. So that's why, again, using this little bit of emery cloth, I'm just going to go around the hole and just gently, and it's very gently, just enlarge it. I should also point out that I have no affiliation whatsoever to any tackle manufacturer anywhere. Okay. There we go. So it's in. Now we're going to just push that through, as I said, making sure that it's facing that way. And I'll just push that in. And you do feel a little bit of a click there when it goes in, but they do recommend that you use some super glue. So if I take this out again, I'm going to use this gel type super glue rather than that runny stuff, and I'm just going to run a very small bead all the way around the edge. Don't want to get too much on, because you need to be aware that with super glue, if you're not careful, you can get what's called a bloom. What that means is that as it's drying, it gives off fumes, and those fumes go white, and so they can make everything around it go white. Okay, we've got the super glue on. Just going to push in and then push down. Now, I'm also looking down here and it's just fractionally off center. So I'm going to take a pair of pliers and just on the white bit, just very gently that's it. Now that's lined up and aiming straight down there, and I just need now to get a piece of tissue and just wipe around that, and that's done. It's just a question of waiting until the glue dries, and then we'll come back and we'll get the elastic in. I've given it about half an hour while I went and got some lunch, and I'm now going to just use this elastic to thread down through. And it's actually very straightforward. Just push it in and feed it down through the pole. A little bit more fiddly than when you're doing it straight down the end of it, because obviously you've got to go down a bend, but take your time and it'll go through nice and easily. There we go. So if I pull this through, obviously I've got far too much elastic here. There's enough for two on this, but obviously I also need to get to this end. So what do you have to do? You can also buy these little bushes that go on the end. They do have a name and it just escapes me for the second, but anyway, these little knobs that go on the end. And there's a hole in it which you can push your elastic through. Tie yourself a straightforward overhand knot. Maybe give myself two. That looks good. And now, because we're tight, take a pair of scissors, cut off the loop, cut off the other tag end, and just pull it through the bead. There is actually a larger bore hole in that end of the bead, so it sits really neatly inside it. Now that's not going to pull out, I hope. Doesn't feel like it is. And then at the other end, once we've pulled that tight, I just store that along there for a second. I now need to thread the elastic through the top section. Now I've got one of these external bushes on here, and I've found that I can actually just drop the elastic down in the normal way. If you've got one of the internal bushes, that might not work, so you might just have to use one of these diamond eye threaders, which you may already be used to. Anyway, I'll just give this a go, and if I push this down through the pole top, just drops through. Make sure the elastic's obviously dry, and also that the top section internally is dry. And for me, it just came straight out of the top. I'll just reassemble the sections a second, like that. And if I just cut this off, I'm going to use what we used to call a Stonfo connector. So I just need to thread this cap on first. A little bit of pressure, not much. I can always readjust later. And then put it on. And then just an overhand knot. Make sure it's wet. And that you've pulled the knot down to the connector. Pull tight. Fit the cap. And that's it. So that end is nicely in. This end pulls and goes back in too. So now we get to the part that I referred to earlier as complications. And what I mean by that is that you're pushing your elastic down through the bush here, and it doesn't come out to the bottom. And the reason for that very often is because there's a coating when you first buy it on the elastic, and it kind of sticks to the sidewall. So if it won't go down, for either that reason or possibly because it's a pretty thin elastic, now remember this one's quite thick, but if it's a thin elastic you can have a similar sort of issue by just trying to drop it down. And at that point what you do, and I'll use the top kit to demonstrate this, sorry, the top section to demonstrate this first of all, is you use your diamond eye threader. I showed you this earlier on and hopefully you have one. I've opened mine out and threaded it down through the top section and also fitted it to the elastic. And what you do now is just pull everything down through until it comes out of the far end, and then disconnect. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to push it through the bush here and out of this end so we can connect it up and pull it back through. But this is also a complication insofar as you can't just insert the pointed end of the diamond eye threader straight into the end of the pole there, because you can't then get it up this banana shaped tube. So what you have to do is take the diamond eye end and pass it through here. In actual fact, if you do try and pass the pointed end through here, it won't go through anyway. Take the diamond eye through and just push and force it down until such time as it comes out of the far end, which is there. Now we can take this end that we've just done attach it to the threader, pull some through till we're tight. I'll just connect this up so we don't get any jams. And then we can pull this thing through. So that's it. If I detach the diamond eye threader, now we can put the little anchor on the end there, but in actual fact on this one, rather than using the ones that came with it, I'm going to use a Stonfo connector and just use that as my puller. Here's the one I'm going to use. Put it on exactly the same way as I showed you for the top end. Just wet it. Overhand loop. Just take off the tag. And then you've got another way of doing it. If I just put some pressure on this end so you can see, this one does exactly the same thing as the one you bought, but it just gives me something extra to hold on to. It's a little bit bigger, and with my arthritic fingers it's just easier to use. Up to you whichever you use, but that's it. The only other thing we have to do, of course, is to attach the connector at this end, again in the same way as I showed you before. So the complications aren't that complicated, it's just a question of knowing how to get over them. But that's it, that's all there is to it, folks. So as always, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like button. If you want to subscribe, you can. And don't forget, next week I'll be down on the pond giving this a go. See you later.